You know, it's very strange, downright unsettling that here in California, politicians are more obsessed with turning our children into their children than actually fixing the real problems families face every single day. Why this constant push to expose kids to sexual subject matter? Why this fixation on blurring lines in restrooms and sports? To me, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and I bet it probably doesn't make sense to you either. And here's the kicker. While they're busy drafting policies about gender in girls' bathrooms, California is literally falling apart. It's like hanging on a razor's edge. Homelessness. We've got nearly 30% of the entire nation's homeless population right here in this state, public schools. Over half of California students aren't meeting grade level standards in math or reading. Roads, housing costs, crime, the list just goes on and on and on, yet taxpayer money is funneled into ideological experiments instead of solving these crises. And the question is, why? Who's funding it? Because you know there's money in it. Because lobbyists and activist groups keep the checks flowing while the everyday citizen is left with rising taxes, we're left with falling infrastructure, and we're left with, and probably worse than all, kids caught in the crossfire of culture wars they never asked for. Think about that. The state once known as the Golden Dream is now exporting policies that feel more like social engineering than governance. And the real question for every Californian is this: when did we stop demanding accountability for the basics and start letting politicians play parent to our children? Check out this clip and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
So parents in California are outraged right now, and honestly, I can see why. The Temecula Valley Unified School District has reportedly put in place a rule saying that if a female student feels uncomfortable sharing a bathroom with the biological male, she has to file a mental health accommodation request under federal disability law. Think about that for a second. Instead of simply respecting a girl's request for privacy, the school is treating it like a medical issue, as if she's the problem. The form they're requiring falls under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which is supposed to be about helping students with disabilities. But here, it's being used to force girls who just want privacy to be labeled as needing special accommodations. Parents are asking, why are the students who want privacy being treated like they're the ones who need to be fixed? Why isn't the district protecting the right of all students to feel safe and comfortable? This is less about politics and more about common sense. Every student deserves privacy, and that shouldn't require a diagnosis of paperwork.
No, this is about politics and common sense. People, parents, non-parents, anyone with any inkling of common sense left, listen up. The time to speak up is now, because what's happening here in California and in blue states all across the country is not just common sense. It's not just politics as usual. It's a part of an agenda that's bigger, darker, and more relentless than most are willing to admit. And no, this is not some conspiracy theory. You can see it as plain as day if you're willing to open your eyes. Look around. They push gender debates and upside down policies nonstop while our communities crumble. Did you know that California spends over $120 billion a year on education? Yet, it ranks in the bottom third of U.S. states for student performance. Did you know that violent crime has risen more than 13% statewide since 2019, while politicians are obsessing over language policing instead of law enforcement? Here's the difference they don't want you to think about. The word normalize means whatever they tell you is acceptable. The word natural is what has always been. For thousands of years, civilizations thrived by respecting the natural order, families, communities, accountability. But today, elites want you to doubt yourself, to silence yourself, and to feel ashamed about speaking common sense. We have to be real with ourselves. These politicians do not care about your kids. They don't care about our kids at all. They don't care about your community. They care about money. They care about class. They care about protecting their own privilege. And the big donors behind this, they're putting and pouring millions into campaigns that keep these culture wars alive. Why? Because division is profitable. I'll say it again and again and again and again. If you don't speak up now, you may wake up one day to find out it's too late. But check out this next clip. I think he describe what's going on here beautifully.
And nothing screams protecting children like turning basic privacy into a diagnosis. Only in California can you come up with a policy so brain dead that it makes the DMV line look like a TED Talk. Temecula Valley Unified School District, the absolute circus act of bureaucratic buffoonery. Don't believe me? Look it up. Basically, if a kid says, hey, I'm uncomfortable changing clothes next to someone of the opposite biological sex who's identifying as the other gender, your genius solution is to tell the parents, cool, but first go ahead and fill out this form and slap a shiny mentally ill sticker on your forehead so the whole damn world knows that you're the problem. Y'all are out of y'all avocado toast loving minds. This isn't inclusivity. It's government sanctioned humiliation. You're telling me that the only way a kid can take a piss in peace is by basically confessing to being mentally unstable on a form? What kind of toilet police state are y'all running? This is why people are loading up U-Hauls faster than Gavin Newsom can gel his hair. Because every time California has a choice between common sense and absolute clown world, they dive headfirst into the rainbow-colored dumpster fire of complete nonsense. And don't dare call it progress. Progress is building a rocket, not forcing a 14-year-old to play Mad Libs with their supposed mental condition just to get a little privacy in the bathroom. Y'all are proposing to make restroom access a psychological diagnosis. Bravo. And let's not ignore the irony here. California is banning straws, legalizing fentanyl tents, taxing air, but when it comes to protecting a kid's right to use a stall in private, suddenly they need a psychologist and a notarized form. I was just talking with a friend from high school this morning, and I'll be damned if this is not part of the reason why she moved her family out of that state. And the same with me. She said herself that she wanted her boys to grow up to be men, not thinking that they can be unicorns. And I agree with her. This is why California is bleeding residents, actively driving families into the arms of Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Idaho. Hell, even Oklahoma is looking like the promised land compared to this clown car. You've managed to turn the simple act of pissing into a mental health crisis. That's it. You win. Crown yourselves the kings of the Clownifornia Hall of Shame.
Well, sadly, the thing you'd have to ask yourself is this on purpose? Is this the purpose of doing all this to make people who think for themselves move away? So that all they have left here, at least in California, is people who do whatever they tell them to do. So basically, all you're going to have is very, very wealthy elites that obviously are in on it. That'll be all your celebrities, all the athletes that's going along with this, everybody on mainstream media and so on. And then you'll have obviously a group of people who depend on the government just to survive. They won't say anything. And then you'll have a bunch of other people who are basically loony, and they'll go along with it as well because their mind has already been flipped upside down. What folks don't seem to realize is this: the Democratic Party has turned everything upside down. What was once right side up, grounded in common sense, is now being flipped on its head. They want you to believe that down is up, left is right, confusion is clarity. And if you don't go along with it, they'll try to shame you into silence. You might ask, how do they pull it off? By exploiting addiction. Over the last 10, maybe 15 years, social media has sort of rewired people's brains. Studies show that the average American spends over 7 hours a day on screens with dopamine hits tied to likes, tied to follows, and most importantly, belonging. You see, politicians, they know this. The mainstream media, they know this. They weaponize this. They dangle acceptance like a carrot. Be one of the cool kids. Just repeat what we tell you. That's why they pay actors. That's why they pay comedians and celebrities to echo nonsense until it sounds normal. But let's be real. Things that defy logic, things that defy nature and truth can never truly make sense. And when you build a society on lies, it collapses. History proves this. Whether it was Rome's decadence before the fall or even Germany before collapse. When culture turned upside down, destruction always follows. Meanwhile, California's own Governor Gavin Newsom, if you can call him, hailed like a rock star by some, hasn't delivered on a single promise. Not homelessness, because that's worse. Crime, that's higher. Cost of living, still skyrocketing. Yet state spending keeps climbing. Over $300 billion a year. While everyday taxpayers get nothing but more and more excuses. You see, Newsom enriches himself and his circle while people footing the bill, us, the taxpayer, are having a hard time trying to figure out how we're going to afford groceries. So ask yourself, when do we stop rewarding results and start worshiping failure dressed up in expensive suits? Let me tell you this, if we don't speak up now, the laws that Newsom, his cronies, and all these Democrats here in California are passing, they're going to silence us forever. Check out this next clip and you'll see exactly what I mean.
California's massive budget surplus has Governor Gavin Newsom demanding a huge spending spree.
Projected operating surplus for the state of California in the May revisions, just shy of $100 billion, simply without precedent. No other state in American history has ever experienced a surplus as large as this.
California is facing a $27 billion budget deficit, and today the governor released his plan for trying to deal with it. Spoiler alert. It is brutal.
The second year in a row, California is facing a multi-billion-dollar shortfall, and that, according to the governor, will lead to the loss of both money that was going towards programs and jobs.
This is kind of work you enjoy doing, but you got to do it. We have to be responsible. We have to be accountable.
He just said accountable. You see, one of the craziest things about people like Gavin Newsom is the media machine that props him up. He's got every mainstream media outlet running cover and convincing folks who are losing jobs, losing homes, people who are stepping over trash, tents, tripping over homeless encampments, even getting mugged in broad daylight, that somehow he's doing the best he can. That is not leadership. That is propaganda. And see, propaganda works like this. They plant a seed, water it with repetition, and before long, people can't see past the lie. Even educated people, folks who should know better, fall for criminals dressed up as leaders, people like Newsom, people like Karen Bass, the whole crew. And here's the problem. Those who don't know, who don't understand what's going on, are speaking the loudest right now. And those voices are driving California straight to the ground. Let's clear up a long-standing myth. Being liberal doesn't mean helping people. In practice, it often traps them. Look around at America's so-called ghettos. Government assistance becomes a crutch that incentivizes dependency. Over 40 million Americans rely on food stamps. Yet, studies reveal that long-term welfare use correlates with decreased upward mobility. Why? Because in order to keep the benefits, you cannot advance. You cannot build wealth. You stay stuck. Meanwhile, the middle class, the backbone of this country, is sinking, footing the bill for programs that enable stagnation. Remember this, the government has no money of its own. It's your money. Every lawsuit against the state, every subsidy for illegal immigrants, every handout comes from your paycheck, your taxes, your labor. Until we understand that basic truth, nothing changes. But don't take it from me. Check out this next clip. The legend breaks it down.
What the welfare system and other kinds of governmental programs are doing is paying people to fail. Insofar as they fail, they receive the money. Insofar as they succeed, even to a moderate extent, the money is taken away. This is even extended into the school systems, where they will give money to schools with low scores. Insofar as the school improves its education, the money is taken away, so that you are subsidizing people to fail in their own private lives and become more dependent upon the handouts.
We have expectations built in today about the quality of life, the quality of job, the level of income for which one expects in return. Why? Because we look at the level around us that it takes us to have a fairly decent level.
No, that's not why. I may have all sorts of expectations. The question is, what can I do? If someone else is subsidizing my expectations will be far higher. Insofar as the Center for Advanced Study was subsidizing my expectations a few years ago, I refused to work at UCLA for the normal full professor's salary. Why should I, when I can get the same money for being at the Center for Advanced Study with no hours, no duties, and no classes?
Cut off welfare tomorrow. What will they do? What will be their immediate response? At what price to their small children and to their middle-aged children? Yes, they'll get a job. In fact, the statistics show that women, in fact, are the most successful through the employment program. But what has to supplement that typically is the provision of some kind of daycare arrangement. Either the individual woman has to earn enough money to be able to pay privately for her daycare, or in fact she is, quote, subsidized through this insidious corrupting set of programs run by the federal government, which in fact makes her employable and a taxpayer. It's an interesting notion of trying to get people in a productive mode.
It's incredible the way you start the story in the middle, as if there's a predestined amount of poverty, a predestined amount of unemployment, and that the welfare system is not itself in any way responsible.
Listen, folks really have to understand none of this poverty, none of this welfare dependency, none of these subsidies or Section 8 programs just appeared overnight. This has been decades in the making. By design. A system built to keep you exactly where you are, at least the people that are on it. Why? So the rich get richer. People say that all the time, but they don't really understand what it means. And I mean unbelievably richer, and the poor stay trapped at the bottom. It's a chessboard. We are the pawns. They are the kings and queens and the knights. Well, the knights is probably the military and the police. protecting the throne, not you. Welfare was sold as compassion, like most things are, but in practice, it shackles people. It enslaves you mentally. Did you know that in 1964, when Lyndon B. Johnson launched the so-called War on Poverty, the poverty rate was about 19%. Trillions of dollars later, after 60 years of government programs, the rate has barely budged. Why? Because the system is not designed to lift people out. It's designed to keep them dependent, lifelong recipients, generations locked in, lifelong Democrats. And let's be real, able-bodied people living in $3,000 apartments for $60 a month under Section 8 while driving luxury cars, all on the taxpayer's dime. That taxpayer is you, the middle class. And as costs keep rising, that middle class is slipping down into the lower class. Meanwhile, the people at the bottom, they're struggling too, but not in the same way, because at least they're not working to fund the very system that traps them. Understand this. It's an old game. It didn't start with Donald Trump. He's just the first in decades trying to expose it. And that's why they hate him. That's why they need you to hate him. Because if the truth gets out, if people finally see how badly they've been scammed, the whole house of cards collapses. You know, I'll say it plain. Things will get worse before they get better. That's what happens when the system has been abused for generations. But exposure is coming. And those who built this scam, they are terrified of being revealed. So, with that, I am Wolf Kage, and this has been Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Until the next time, have a great weekend, stay unwoke, and peace.